Welcome back, Light Up Literature family. Today we are talking about standardized testing and why it matters, even if you don't love them. So let's talk about it, because every year around this time, it becomes an emotional debate. Are tests good? Are they harmful? Do they really measure anything? Is there any real world application to it? Why are we teaching to the test? All these things are natural conversations that we're having as teachers and parents, especially in middle school. Here's my honest answer. No, they don't measure everything. They don't measure creativity, compassion. They don't measure faith or leadership or humor. But dismissing them altogether, that's something completely different. That is the missing part that's important that we need to normalize, okay? So when a student reads a passage, he has to go back and find evidence, compare answer choices and options carefully, eliminate weak options, and manage time. That's executive function work. And this requires attention. It requires impulse control, structural thinking, and those systems don't disappear after middle school. They grow into adult decision making. So we have to make sure that we're super on point and don't dismiss just because it's a standardized test or a test of any type that it's not useful in real world application. And so that's one of the things we're definitely going to talk about. So think about it. When you compare two insurance policies, what are you doing? You're reading closely. You're looking at the fine print. You're evaluating trade-offs, which you're eliminating the weaker option, the one that's not going to work best for you. That's all reading comprehension. When someone writes a proposal at work, they state a claim, they provide evidence and reasoning. That's an extended writing response. And we do it as adults all day, every day, in some form or fashion. It doesn't even matter what career field you're in. You're going to experience that, from lawyers to blue collar construction workers and the plumbers that get things fixed and the electricians, right? So this is a skill for everyone. So just because it has standardized testing, let's not dismiss it. Now, this is something that's super important. Middle school brains are still in development. That's huge, because in middle school, students are learning to construct, they're in the construction phase of how their brain works. So between 10 and 14, their prefrontal cortex, the important part, is responsible for planning, impulse control, working memory. All of that is still developing. So we need neutral pathways to get that strengthened and practiced, right? And it's much better to practice in middle school than in the real world. At that point, people aren't compassionate. In middle school, you're there for learning. And this is a huge learning and life skill. So it isn't just about passing a test. It's about strengthening your kiddo's system, their system that builds into their adulthood. So that's not me being harsh, that's just neuroscience. And we have to acknowledge what is real without, putting too much emphasis and using those tests the way they should be used, not as a pass or fail thing. So critical thinking matters, communication matters, decision-making matters, and yet there's a gap between what employers want and our current graduates in 2025, 2026 actually demonstrate. So if we're not working on this in middle school, when our brains are connecting and working and learning how to use all this information for something important that's a test versus real world jobs, providing for your family, things like that, what are we doing? It's not just about rating a passage. It's about helping them build the skills they need to be successful in life. And if it doesn't do that, it's not the right test. Now, let's talk about ADHD. As you know, I'm a huge ADHD friend because I have ADHD. My daughter has ADHD. We live in that world. So this matters even more here because ADHD is not a reading deficit, but we struggle, especially in our middle school years, with having passive learning versus active learning, not having structure, and that's including in our classroom and our learning so that we're learning how to learn. Impulse control, that means, yes, we might not like time tests. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have them. But there's fun ways you can do that. Think Kahoots, think maze chases, things that are gamified that don't diminish the education. Those are the ways we build success, and we don't bore our ADHD kiddos to death, and we don't sacrifice anything on the education side of things. So make sure that you're giving your kiddos clear steps, define the time boundaries, so don't spring it up on them, explicit strategy, teach them exactly how to maneuver through the steps that they need to, and give them immediate feedback. If they don't have immediate feedback, they're just overwhelmed and scared, and nothing about that is positive, and you're not going to get the best results. When students know that tests, especially ADHD kiddos, when they know that the test isn't a personal failure, it's just, okay, let's look at what we need to fix, what we need to work on. It makes them feel better, respond better, and understand the emotional support that's there versus shaming. And that's huge. All right, so when I say make sure that we prep strategically, this isn't about tricks, habits, gaming the system. It's about marking evidence before choosing, eliminating weak options, structured, clear, right. Use a structure that works for your kiddo. I created 3 Trees Grow for a writing system. That's a system that I have used in classrooms and I've used in college, different areas that all work on the same skills. We can talk about that in a different video. Now, this is how we are helping. We are not cramming. We are not building new systems and a new thing, because Lord knows we do not need yet another new thing to master. Not as teachers, parents, or homeschool families or kiddos. There's already plenty that can fill our buckets and more. So let's really focus on standardized tests are not the goal, but the reasoning behind them is the training. That's what matters. That's your real world application that matters. Now, I have a full blog post that goes into a whole lot more on that. You can check it out on lightupLiterature.com. And then I have specific ones for reading and writing to see how those skills are real world in a lot more detail, which I won't bore you with here. So I hope you found this information informative. If you have questions, Deborah at lightupLiterature.com. I'm always here for you. Until next time, happy teaching. Don't lose your mind, whether you're a teacher or a parent. Until next time, be safe and happy. Bye.